Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Friday, July 25th, 2025, and today's topic, I'm going to be sketching Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. But before we begin, welcome back if you are returning and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer and see how far I get, but I will say that don't rush. This is basically going into the detail stage of these sketches, so don't rush. That's as much for myself as anyone else that's listening. I'll post a link to yesterday's video. This is like a little mini series, couple of videos that showed how I did this or got to this point, but I'll put up a before picture so you can see the steps. I had to make myself leave this much because I wanted to work on it some more, but I worked on it for 30 minutes after yesterday's video to get this far. And on this one, this character, this is more comic book kind of style. More of it is stylized and made up. This one, they're both from reference, but I wanted to show sort of different directions you can take using reference. But then the original sketches were from these model sheets that I had. In this one, I had mentioned how you can also go towards more portraiture, making it look more like the reference or like the person. The pens I'm going to use, like the basic look of it is this medium felt tip point, but then I also have just a finer point, so something thinner. And then also for this one, because of his look, but I also have this for it's like a brush, some of the areas, and we'll go over that. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to actually finish. That's why I worked on it some, but I wanted to go over how I would finish it. Hopefully it's kind of self-explanatory. As far as yesterday was the sketch, but because I was tracing over the base model that I had, it can go along quicker. That's the benefit of that. But I wouldn't skip drawing the base model. Like, make sure you understand that part. So yeah, with that said, here, this is the light and dark right here. And everything is relative, so everything works right here. Like, it's balanced. And so you can see why, because you have the white of the paper, which is the light, and then the hatching. So you don't have to hatch. You can kind of do this, which has some hatching, but I wouldn't call this like cross hatching. There's some hatching, and you could actually leave some of that out, but I like the look. I'm just going to stick with hatching until I need to cross hatch. So there's just like levels of detail. So from here, there's certain things that I'm thinking about. One is I'm just going to stick with the medium point, which is like the main look of it. That's like basically the look of the sketch, is this pen right here. But one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to use this brush pen or marker to add like kind of like the dark areas. But you want to do everything in steps and like gradually, because everything is relative, as I like to say, but also other people like to say. Meaning, like, I could do that right here. So just for an example, it looks like, again, I'm just like looking off of a photo of the costume and stuff. So for example, it looks like, and you can be definite with these lines. You can always sketch it out in pencil if need be. So let's say that this part is dark, like in the reference, his outfit. Same with this. So this is just from the sketching. So you can go in and like clean it up. So it's a mix of cleaning it up. So like this right here is darker than like his hair, but they're both pretty dark if you kind of just squint at it. Like, I just turned the photo into like a black and white photo. So there's like some highlights. So for example, here, this kind of thing. So it's basically all dark, but like with some highlights. But notice that if I leave it like this, it looks okay because everything is relative, meaning there's shading, but there's not like a ton of it. And so your eyes sort of, it's balanced, like the values are balanced, like the pattern, it reads. And that's the important thing. You never want to move forward and have the next step be worse off than like where you were. So if it looks good right here, and that's why I use timers, or I just leave it alone or whatever, and also learn how to draw so that you know, like, okay, like that's fine, but there's more that you could do. You could add to it, but you don't want to add to it to like try to fix anything. There's no fixing. It's just drawing. So like, even though this could actually be black, if you were to go in and just fill this in, it would throw off the values on the face. Like, and it's better to not do that. Now, if you're not sure, you can just use the same technique. So just an example is you could do like the hair right here. It blends in with like the outfit. So, and it all depends on like also the technique. I'm using a crosshatch technique, so that's why this works. It's different. Even with this, it looks a little different. As far as like the line work, that comes from practice, or like the line quality, if you will. And what I mean by that is, it's like in painting also. Like when you paint something, there's beauty in the actual paint stroke itself. You can keep adding to the value. So same with like the hair. So the hair, you can blend it kind of like this. So notice that it goes together, and that's like the important thing. Not so much how dark should it be, but rather it goes together, like the shape. Think about it more in terms of the shape goes together. So, and squint at it and see if it reads. So for example, this could be darker. And if you're not sure like what shape to make this, well, one, you have reference, so that helps. But it's also, that's where the penciling comes in if you need to pencil it. But with practice, you'll kind of know, because it's all just shapes. It's bigger and smaller shapes in proportion. Like that's the basic idea. Notice that it still works, because it looks like, because let's say like something is black, like if the hair is black or like the outfit is black, again, it's just all relative because it depends on the lighting. That's why you want to do it gradually, because this looks okay. Like it could look as, it could have more detail, but it looks okay. And there's certain areas that are more obvious. So for example, up here, if I'm looking at the photo, like obviously just from the photo, like this could look darker just because of the light and dark, like where the light's coming from. But then you have to decide, okay, well, how do you want to, as far as what kind of line work and stuff, like that's kind of up to you. That's like your handwriting. But just an example is I'm going to, so that's why like I'm going to turn it, because it's the line quality also plays a part. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to do this. And again, be gradual about it. So like that already says a lot right there. And I could have done it in a different way. And this is kind of specific to pen and ink, but it's also, if you're painting, it's kind of the same thing. Like your brush strokes do matter. So that like says a lot already. And that's what I mean by being gradual, is just to keep adding that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those things that you don't rush, and you usually don't want to be like talking because it's a visual thing. Part of it is you're looking at the drawing, and the more detail you add to it, the more it becomes its own thing. And it's like you're going off of the reference, but it's almost like they're in front of you kind of thing. Like you can push different things. You can clean up different things. So how do you clean up? So one thing is you could go in with this, but I would wait a little bit. You could clean this up a little bit more. So just an example is, let's say that this is the mouth. So if you go over the line, you can clean it up that way. So notice that by doing that, you're refining the line, and you're also making it, like you're giving it smaller shapes. So this shape, that's like a shape right there, but I'm going to give it a smaller shape to it, if that makes sense. Just like if I add. So to keep things simple, so I went over that again, and I went over it in the same direction, which I just call hatching for convenience. Cross hatching would be I would go across like the line work, and that would push it one more time, like push the values by doing that. Now I just push the value by going over it in the same direction for simplicity, and also like texture and stuff like that. And you kind of have to just experiment with that. Like I've messed up so many sketches, but you kind of like that's just to keep it simple, just even for like myself. But sometimes I'll play around just to see what I can get away with. But yeah, it changes. It's like a language, so you have to just play around with it. But this is like kind of the simpler way, just like using the same pen is kind of a simpler way of doing it. So just for example, like just from looking at the reference, like that could be pushed. So that's like a shape right there with some values. There's like a gradation that I can put like this, and that's what I mean by build up gradually, and just check the reference, for example. So if you go like this, so again gradually, because not all of it needs to have like the same like level of rendering. And it's the same with so the lighting, this is the simple lighting, so you have light and dark. You can keep it like that, but you'll notice like the actual form, and this is a more cartoony version, the actual form, and also like in the reference there's like a highlight, meaning right here on the forehead, and there's what you would call a like a mid-tone right here, but you may or may not want to have that. Honestly, it's up to you. You can actually keep just building this up. So just for example, from the reference, the shadow, it extends to the hair, because you have to figure that the hair is going to be darker than the face, like his hair. So you could go, so to clean up something is one, the pen strokes, like it matters in this kind of artwork because it's pen and ink. So to clean up something, I sketched it in, but I don't have to redraw it. It's basically right there. The shape is right there. And part of this was to study like the features and the hairstyle and stuff like that. So again, you could keep it like this and it looks more contrast, like high contrast. And yeah, I could do that with the rest of it, but you may not need to. I mean, it's art, so it's kind of up to you, but that's like the basic look of it right there. Now if you go in with the smaller, and I'll just kind of do that, like this is more comic book. Again, if you're going to color it, it's better to leave more open space for the color to do its thing. But let's say that you want to just go ahead and make it more like a pen and ink, like detail kind of thing. So you can start to round this form, go into like the mid-tone. So an example of that is this. Now the pen stroke matters, like it's part of it. This kind of thing. And that just comes from practice. It's just like the hand-eye coordination. So that's one way to get more subtlety. Same with like right here. You can start to like round this form right here. If you want to go ahead and add this, again, I would do all of this kind of gradually, but this has become the darkest area right here. So what that means is that's where your eyes gravitate towards when you look at this right now, where it's at. Like that's where your eye is going to gravitate. But let's add this thing right here, because that's kind of part of the look and it can look nice. So I'm just gonna I'm going to fill this in. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So it's not a bad look. I mean, it goes with the drawing. Like I could have added it there and there, but like you build it up because it's relative. Because you didn't just take a photo of it. That's what it is. It's like, since I'm looking at a photo, like all of the lighting is already set up in the photo, but when you're drawing it, you're the one setting up the lighting by like every bit of like shading that you're doing. So an example of what I'm talking about is, this was the most contrast part right here, but now obviously this becomes the most contrast part. So I can start to, and because I'm using reference, like that's kind of the benefit of it, aside from just copying like the character. The other thing is I can understand value a little bit more. So for example, if I do this, again, this is a technique. This is a pen and ink technique. So even though maybe in the photo, like this was all dark or something, or maybe this is all dark, I'm keeping it relative in my drawing because my drawing isn't a photo. So another example is, this is darker, but when I darken this, so that's what I'm going to do, and I'll just kind of wrap this up. So when I darken this area, and again, I could cross hatch it, but I'm just going to hatch it. I'm just going to go in the same direction, which I just call like hatching. But I'm doing it in a way that's nice looking, like it's definite, like it's not sloppy. But notice like when I do this, it looks better. If I had just done that to begin with, it makes this look more contrast than it really is. So another thing is, let's say you wanted to add more subtlety and round this form, merge it, because you could outline it. This is more like cartoony sort of outline, but if you want to have it look more subtle, you could do this, make it have like a softer edge. So this is more cross-hatched right here, so it adds a texture that didn't really exist anywhere else. So when you're doing pen and ink, like that's kind of important because that's what gives it depth. So the texture is also important. It introduced a value, it rounded the form, and it introduced like a texture. So for example, you can keep doing this. And that's how you can keep refining it and sculpting it. That'll be it for today. I'll just wrap up this little series. Let me know if you have any questions. I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine. And if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.